Overdrive today, we check out the naked version of the TVS RR310, find out what's changed in the Tata Nexon Facelift, and get you details about the latest Royal Enfield Bullet 350. Hello and welcome to Overdrive. I am Soanida. TVS is on a launch spree. Close on the heels of the launch of the electric scooter X comes the naked variant of the RR310.
This is the TVS Apache RTR310. The naked version of the RR310. It loses that fairing, of course, but it packs in a lot more. So does that make it the best 310 to buy from the TVS BMW family? Let's find out.
The yellow scheme looks a bit overdone to me, but the Sepang Blue, which is a color scheme that I had recommended TVS should make after their ARRC success last year, looks the best in my opinion. But it comes at a Rs 10,000 premium, which is a bit much if you ask me.
The front end, the Z-inspired design, Street Fighter, Yamaha MT, people are calling it a hodgepodge of designs. I think it's come together quite nicely. It's a very smart looking motorcycle, no matter what angle you look at it from. I'm not going to pick out a pretty angle because the front, the side, the tail, all of it looks quite nice to me. It's also the most accommodating RTR yet. It's the most roomy, and because it's coming from the RR310, it's also got rear set foot pegs, so you definitely want to take a longish test ride to ensure that this is a comfortable posture for you. The 800mm seat height is really good. It's going to accommodate most Indian riders, but it is a more sporty, a more committed riding posture than any of the smaller RTRs, and that may or may not be to your liking depending on what you want from your sports naked.
Like the RR310, these foot pegs too dig into the corner quite quickly. This isn't a track machine, though TVS have tinkered with the internals of the engine to push out more power and torque than the RR310. And hopefully all these advancements will flow to the RR310 as well.
The lack of a fairing and the wind hitting you at speed is going to take a toll on the top speed. That is why the 150 km/h top speed claimed for this motorcycle is 10 kmph lesser than the RR310.
Had they carried over the RR310's engine unchanged, the performance gap would have been wider. The 2 PS bump in power then compensates to an extent for the lack of the better aerodynamics that are offered by a full fairing.
Even the torque is slightly bumped up and it's dialed in 1000 RPM earlier compared to the RR310. That is essentially to give you a much stronger mid-range, to get you brisker performance off the mark. But honestly, in the city environment, it can get a little cumbersome, especially when you're riding in bumper-to-bumper traffic. And with that TVS glide-through tech, the bike just keeps lurching forward quite a bit. So all of this can get a little annoying. Easy trick for that, just engage the urban mode, which will restrict the power to about 27 PS, and then feather the clutch lever. Now the clutch lever is also adjustable, so that also makes it less cumbersome for use in the city traffic.
There are plenty of riding modes to choose from: urban and rain with reduced power, or the full-blown sport, track and supermoto modes for the fun times.
Now we couldn't really get a chance to try out the supermoto mode. However, we did get a chance to try the sport and the track mode thanks to a ride organized at the Thailand circuit, not to be confused with the Chang circuit. Now on this track, we were able to ride a few laps. It's a tight track. There are some fast-flowing straights as well, some fast-flowing corners as well. Now the difference in the sport and the track mode isn't very noticeable even out on the racetrack. I think the best way to enjoy this motorcycle, whether you're sport riding or riding on the track, is engage the sport or the track modes and also turn off traction control completely. That is what opens the true character of the engine and just makes it go wild. And then you can have a lot of fun.
The stability offered by the Michelin Road 5 tires and the excellent chassis derived from the RR310 makes it an excellent handling package too, and you won't really complain for traction often.
But the suspension is set up on the softer side compared to the RR310, and whether or not you take the motorcycle to the track at all, I'm still going to urge you to choose the adjustable suspension. Rupees 18,000 for a fully adjustable setup is a very small price to pay for the kind of adjustability that it gives you. Once you are able to set up the motorcycle to your preference, it is just a very rewarding experience, whether you're riding on the streets, just commuting, going sport riding, sport touring maybe, and even maybe occasional track days. All of it just comes together nicely once you have that adjustable suspension. So 18,000 bucks, not a big price to pay. Now, I also had a chance to try out the big feature, the cool seat and I think it just works fabulously well. Even with the waterproof lined thick gear that I was wearing yesterday, I could feel the effects of the cooled seat and it just works. I think TVS should just make this an accessory available on all their motorcycles. That's how good it is. Just make it 5 degrees cooler maybe.
Temperature control seats are usually available on more expensive touring machines, and it's good to see TVS engineering it at this price point. Another feature that comes from the higher end motorcycles is the ability of the TFT instrumentation to connect to your GoPro action camera and allowing you to control it on the go. However, this is a feature we couldn't try on our short ride. So more on that with a road test, where we'll also talk about the real world fuel economy and the performance figures.
Summing it up, I think this is the best iteration of the TVS BMW 310 platform yet. TVS needs to fix the traction control, which is too intrusive. They need to get rid of that choppy throttle and need to make the acceleration as linear as the RR310. Apart from these easily fixable gripes, I think the RTR310 is an excellent all-round package. It is packed to the gills with tech and features. And I think if you really don't care much about the fairing, this is the best TVS motorcycle on sale at the moment. Definitely the biggest surprise of 2023 so far.
Well, the motorcycle has been launched in a very interesting space. It will be going up against the likes of the BMW G310R, the Bajaj Dominar 400, Triumph Speed 400 and also the KTM 390 Duke. We'll take a very quick break here on that note. Come right back. We'll tell you all about the facelifted Tata Nexon. Welcome back. You're watching Overdrive. Tata Nexon has been Tata Motors' best-selling model till date. In fact, it also holds the distinction and the fort of being called the best-selling SUV in the country. It has now got an update and we've driven the petrol DCT as well as the diesel manual variant to tell you which one is worth your money.
This may be the most striking update to the Nexon yet, but does it follow in the same footsteps? With this facelift, the Nexon takes quite a bit of inspiration from the curve concept in its styling. To this end, there are a few more changes than you would otherwise see on a mid-cycle update. The bonnet and front fenders have been reworked to go with the new front. The split headlamp look is now increasingly common, but the Tata Motors interpretation is one of the better executed ones, with the gloss black top accent and the DRLs incorporated into this discreetly. The detailing around the large low grille is thoughtful and helps reduce its mass. The full LED lighting, again in a deep vertical indent, is a good complement to the face. It's discreet when not in use, although unlike competitors, Tata Motors continues to offer fog lamps. Expectedly, the changes to the Nexon aren't as extensive in profile. The distinct contrasting window line accent has been done away with. It goes with the more mature theme of the design, also seen with the crisper treatment to the C-pillar that brings the roofline in line with the new look. At the rear, the lighting is the biggest draw, with the full-width signature looking especially premium, a fact amplified by the welcome swipe it does, right up there with some luxury brands. Boot space hasn't changed, so it's not the most spacious but easily accessed by a low loading lift. Now that very striking contemporary theme from the outside carries over on the inside of the new Nexon as well, and just like the outside, it merges with what was already an offer with the Nexon pretty well. You notice this sort of faux carbon fiber-ish texture here, which feels quite nice to touch. And this panel, which is contrasting purple in this particular car, you can have it in an all black shade. This too really, at least visually, makes a big impact. It seems to enhance the feeling of plushness in the cabin, makes it feel more premium. But really, one of the most impressive additions is the new infotainment package. You start with this 10.25-inch screen, which immediately takes the Nexon from having one of the weakest touchscreens in the segment to pretty much right at the top. Touch responses are crisp and phone pairing is seamless too, with the wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. The widget-based navigation makes most functions within easy reach, almost enough for you to not miss physical controls except for the ones for the audio. The smartphone-like sub-menus are similarly thoughtful and come with a host of kit like Alexa voice assistants and sound modes for the new 9-speaker JBL sound system. The instrument cluster offers up quite a bit of information cleanly and is easy to toggle through. The various views are well thought out too and offer a range of customization options. Especially useful is the Google Maps feed in this screen that makes navigating much simpler. If anything, we would have liked slightly larger fonts. Now things haven't changed all that much in the back, to be honest. You do have new seats, you have quite a bit of under-thigh support. In fact, you are sort of lifted up considering this big bulge over here. The cushioning itself has changed, even the backrest has become a touch more rounded off. There's a bit more contouring to it, so over long distances you should be quite comfortable. A vast list of features is tied in with this. You get ventilated seats, connected tech with remote engine start-stop, a PM 2.5 air purifier, height adjustment for both front passengers, auto headlamps and wipers, and a single pane sunroof being the highlights. This Nexon hasn't been tested to the newest crash regulations yet. You get an especially handy 360-degree camera setup with blind view cameras and the 3D view. Aside from this, there are 6 airbags, an auto-dimming inner mirror and TPMS. Now, expectedly, given that there haven't been too many mechanical changes, the experience of driving the Nexon hasn't changed all that much. The new sort of option or new combination that you can get is the 1.2 turbo petrol with the 7-speed DCT. Now, it does have 120 PS and 170 Newton meters, which are par for the course in terms of how powerful the engine is. And of course, a turbo petrol and DCT combination usually means for an exciting driving experience. But the Nexon doesn't do it that way. It's generally much calmer experience. The drivetrain seems to have been tuned for the kind of driving that we're doing, calm, sedate driving, where you aren't pushing the engine all that much. And this is where the Nexon in this petrol DCT combination feels the best. Now, the gearbox, it does quite a good job, I must say, of ironing out whatever lag there might be in the powertrain. And quite unlike those really sharp-edged, hard-edged shifts that you would expect from a DCT, it changes gears much more calmly, much more softly. Tata Motors has slightly reworked the suspension, but generally the Nexon rides and handles like it used to earlier. So yes, like most new Tata cars, there's a firm edge to the ride at low speeds. This is well done, but you do feel larger potholes and broken surfaces filter into the cabin at these speeds. This improves noticeably as speeds build and the Nexon becomes solid and comfortable feeling on the highway. Now, the Nexon can also be had with a diesel engine. Now, this motor is again carried over from the earlier Nexon and pairs with a 6-speed manual. Immediately you notice that we're driving this one on the highway, which will probably be where it's at its best. Now, the turbo petrol I already mentioned was a good, mile munching machine in that sense, and this one of course takes that up a few notches. With this facelift, Tata Motors seems to have worked on strengthening the Nexon's positives. The DCT does smoothen out the petrol's performance, but we would have liked to have seen better refinement to go with this. That said, the Nexon now looks special and comes with a cabin that feels more premium in look and in the tech that's packed in. Pair this with the great value that Tata cars usually promise, and this update should see the Nexon continue on its upward trajectory.
The Tata Nexon is not the only SUV Tata Motors has given an update to. The Nexon EV comes in as well. You can check out that video on our YouTube channel. We'll take a very quick break here on the show, but coming up on the other side, we'll tell you all about the Royal Enfield Bullet 350. Welcome back, you're watching Overdrive. The all-new Royal Enfield Bullet 350 has launched in an all-new avatar based on the J-Series platform. It is available in 3 trims starting at 1.73 lakh rupees. Let's find out what's new in this motorcycle.
Now, the Bullet is a motorcycle that is a legend by Royal Enfield standards because, well, first and foremost, although it's been around for more than 90 years, well, it's a motorcycle that Royal Enfield has built its reputation on to date. Now, since the early 80s and 90s, well, it was a well-known fact that Royal Enfield did manufacture the Bullet, but to every Indian household, well, if you owned one, you didn't own a Royal Enfield, you owned a Bullet. Well, that's how well-known the brand was at back then. Now, times have changed and the motorcycle has too. Well, we're out here with the 2023 Royal Enfield Bullet and we're going to find out what's so special about it. So, let's get right to it.
Royal Enfield's motto is made like a gun.
And of course, the Bullet name has an important part to play in that very tagline. The Bullet is a hallowed name that resounds in the halls of Royal Enfield. It's a motorcycle that the company built its legacy on before the arrival of 350cc single-cylinder bikes like the Thunderbird or the Classics or the Meteor. All of them arrived on the scene. Compared to the older BS6 Bullet that was sold out here, well, this 2023 model could be considered a generational leap ahead of the older bike. But in the light of the world today, well, it isn't completely new. Let me explain. Just to get it out of the way right now, the new 350cc Bullet and the current 350cc Classic motorcycles have a lot in common. The engine, suspension and most underpinnings included. Still, the ride and handling dynamics have improved tremendously over the older Bullets sold out here, and so too the level of engine refinement. The balancer shaft of the torquey 349cc long stroke motor allows for a pleasurable ride experience with just enough vibrations that let you know that you're riding a motorcycle of some substance. Its output figures remain at 20.5 PS and 27 Nm, never a real bad thing, and the 5-speed gearbox from the Classic 350 makes an appearance here too, with its gearing unchanged. The wheels, the handlebar, the tank, the ABS-equipped brakes are all common between the current Classic and the new Bullet model. Although I wasn't really upset with the configuration of the Bullet 350, I would have loved for its handlebar to have been slightly flatter, you know, like how it is on the older models. In terms of ride dynamics, the double down tube frame still feels ready to take on long sweeping bends. The single bench seat has altered the rider triangle marginally, and the stock exhaust note sounds a tad different in comparison to the Classic 350, but you won't get that cracker thump of the older models. The ergos are very relaxed, which is awesome, and the seat is very comfy and, like before, will be great for long touring stints. With the 13-litre tank and 195 kg curb, which is the same as the Classic, well, the Bullet is a breeze to ride around the city too. Design-wise, the Bullet retains the same silhouette that generations across the world have come to adore this motorcycle for. It still oozes retro charm from head to toe.
Alright, so although the 2023 Bullet has a lot in common with the 350 Classic, well, what sets this one apart, at least the top-end version, has to be these nice hand painted pinstriping on the tank and the quarter panels. Then of course you get the nice metal badging on both these same panels as well. You get a squarish airbox and battery cover out here as opposed to the rounded panels on the Classic 350. A single bench seat, which is very different than the split seat on the Classic, and of course the slightly angular rear fender on this particular motorcycle.
Now, in the light of today, the Bullet 350 can clearly be seen as a different rendition of the existing J-Series Classic 350, with some subtle yet definitive changes to some of its panels, the seat, badging. Because, in essence, that's what it actually is. The 2023 Bullet gets the same instrumentation layout as the Classic, so you get that analog speedo with the digital bar underneath that reads out things like the trip, odo and time. Like the other 350cc Enfield sold out here, you'll have to shell out extra for the navigational pod, or wait for some special edition to be launched because that bit of kit doesn't come standard otherwise. Back in the good old days, the Bullet 350 was seen as a status symbol, a bike that really stood out in front of the rest as a sign of success, and it also flexed some serious masculinity muscles. Now, times have changed since then, and so have those particular notions. Now, if you're wondering why should the Bullet 350 even exist, if in fact it is a Classic 350 in disguise? Well, for starters, RE wanted to hit that refresh button on the Bullet 350, thereby turning to a new chapter in the legacy of a motorcycle that's been around for more than 90 years and making it accessible to a younger generation.
Now, to sum things up out here, what has Royal Enfield really done with the 2023 Bullet? Well, first and foremost, it has allowed this motorcycle to finally play catch-up to the other current crop of 350cc motorcycles in its portfolio. Because with the new engine, the chassis, well, it has undergone a substantial change over the previous Bullet model. Now, yes, there are different ways you can perceive this motorcycle. First and foremost, you can look at it as a Classic 350 in disguise, which it actually is. But then again, why would you buy this motorcycle? Of course, its price
well, it ranges from 1,75,000 and goes up all the way to 2,15,000, which is slightly cheaper than the classic 350. But then again, why would you pay for that? Well, there's just one reason for that, because you would want to be part of that rich, long-lasting legacy that is associated with the Bullet brand.
Well, we've run out of time on this week's episode of Overdrive, but remember, you can stay in touch with the team through Facebook, Twitter, as well as YouTube. Drop in your comments, and you can follow our latest updates on Instagram as well. We'll see you next week. Until then, drive and ride safe.